In 1566, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent led 100,000 elite troops across the open Hungarian plains. This map shows the distance they traveled from the Ottoman border toward their primary objective, Vienna. Vienna represented the gateway to Central Europe. If it fell, the geographical barriers between the Ottoman war machine and the heart of the continent would effectively disappear. Despite the scale of the invasion, the Habsburg emperor refused to risk his own army of 80,000 men. He opted to wait in northern Hungary, hoping the approaching winter would stop the advance for him. This left a single obstacle in the Sultan's path, Szigetvár. As seen here, it was a small, isolated outpost constructed from timber and packed mud, surrounded by miles of thick marshland. Inside, 58-year-old Nikola Zrinski commanded a garrison of just 2,300 men. He received word that no reinforcements were coming. His small force was entirely on its own. Military experts of the time predicted Szigetvár would collapse in 3 days. Zrinski stayed because he recognized that every hour he stalled the Ottoman army was an hour stolen from their march toward Vienna. This chart illustrates the logistical reality. A force of 100,000 men requires an enormous support system, consuming 1,000 tons of resources every single day. The Hungarian winter begins in October. In August, Vienna was still 300 kilometers away. The window was closing fast. Zrinski understood the equation. He didn't have the manpower to defeat the Ottoman forces. He simply needed to stall them for 1 month. If he could hold Szigetvár through September, the siege would deplete the Ottomans' finite supplies and force them to face the winter before they ever reached their goal. To buy that month, Zrinski weaponized the local geography. The surrounding marshland and the fortress's primitive construction became his strongest defensive assets. This cross-section shows the physics of those defenses. When heavy artillery strikes solid stone, the wall shatters. But Szigetvár's packed earth and mud walls absorbed the kinetic energy of Ottoman cannonballs, creating craters that the defenders easily patched with fresh dirt overnight. This illustration captures the resulting engineering nightmare. Ottoman crews had to manually haul massive cannons and maneuver heavy infantry through knee-deep mud, struggling to find stable ground for their artillery. The delay extracted a massive toll. Over the course of 33 days, the Ottomans lost between 20,000 and 30,000 men in the mud. While combat took many, the damp conditions of the marsh bred widespread disease. Dysentery swept through the stagnant Ottoman encampment, further depleting their combat strength. Zrinski used the combination of mud and time to grind an elite fighting force into an exhausted, diseased husk. By September 6th, the situation inside the Ottoman command tent reached a breaking point. The 72-year-old Sultan Suleiman succumbed to illness and died in his bed. This presented an immediate threat to the empire's stability. If the elite Janissary Corps discovered the Sultan was dead, the military camp would likely fracture into rival factions, potentially triggering a civil war mid-campaign. Grand Vizier Sokolu Mehmed Pasha responded with extreme secrecy. He removed the Sultan's physician, seated the corpse on the throne to simulate life, and issued forged royal orders to keep the army attacking. The next day, a massive explosion finally breached Szigetvár's walls. The central keep caught fire, reducing Zrinski's force to just 600 surviving men. Zrinski had bought his month. Outside the walls, a dead sultan was commanding an exhausted army to continue the siege. Inside, a living commander was actively preparing to die. With the fortress burning around him, Zrinski refused to surrender. Instead of donning his battle-damaged armor, he dressed in a red silk ceremonial robe. He placed 100 gold coins into his pocket, the exact bounty owed to the soldier who killed an enemy commander. Ensuring his own death would be a final transaction. He ordered his men to drag their last field cannon directly behind the main wooden gate, packing the barrel with scrap metal, broken chains, and iron nails. As thousands of Janissaries massed outside, Zrinski blasted the doors open. The cannon fired a point-blank wave of shrapnel straight into the Ottoman lines. Zrinski drew his sword and led his remaining 600 men into the chaos for hand-to-hand combat. He fell during the melee, taking as many of the enemy with him as possible, his bounty left untouched in his pocket. This historical etching illustrates the aftermath. Szigetvár was entirely leveled. On paper, the Ottoman Empire had secured a victory. But the cost was unsustainable. It was mid-September, The army was short tens of thousands of men, their supplies were dangerously low, and the Hungarian snow was imminent. Without the time to march any further, the Grand Vizier formally abandoned the push for Vienna and ordered the battered army to retreat toward Constantinople. The siege reveals a paradox of military strategy. The weaker side doesn't always need an absolute victory on the battlefield to win a war. Nikola Zrinski proved that, by simply avoiding losing too quickly, he could turn his own tactical destruction into the strategic salvation of an entire continent.